Okay, whenever you're ready, give me a signal. Welcome to this electrifying segment of Let's Talk About Dave. Here's a guy that went from mama's boy to bag boy, to dining at Bob's big boy, to Johnny's boy. So don't leave the house, don't touch your mouse, don't click your flipper, and stay tuned in, because Dave is just an all-around.
From New York, the greatest city in the world, it's The Late Show with Jim Becker.
I'd often visit the Comedy Store, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. Matter of fact, that's where we first met. And I'd stop in there, and Robin Williams would be over in the corner standing on his head, and Mitzi's little kid, Paulie, he'd be running around playing grab ass, just pestering all the comedians. And that night, Leno, he's over there arguing with the host about who goes on next. Well, you just got done with your thing. You were coming off stage, and I told a friend of mine, I said, that's Letterman. That's that dude from Indiana. I mean, that guy's great. He's also on a roll, because he just made $15, which is enough money to go to Bob's Big Boy and get him some dinner and get some gas for that truck.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny.
Johnny Carson's last Friday night on the air, he didn't have any guests. He just did it himself, and he just basically sat back there for about an hour and whined is what he did. But the Friday before, which was the last Friday night with guests, I got a personal invitation from Johnny, and we're sitting there, and Ed McMahon does his normal warm-up. You know, he tells a few jokes, and the band's playing, Shaughnessy's beating the drums. And right before Carson gets announced, Ed always announced, you know, here's Johnny. This hay hacker from North Dakota is sitting beside me. He leans over and he says, hey man, is this a rerun? And I'm like, you got this. So I was really courteous to the old guy and an old timer, and I explained to him how impossible it would be, even to think that was absurd. Explained it to him how, you know, this just can't be a rerun. We're sitting here live watching. And he goes, yeah, but how do we know that? Johnny had a couple of known guests on that night, but I actually made the trip to see the great Letterman. You know, he had Bob Hope and Clint Eastwood. I mean, they're good company, they're good background, but Letterman was undoubtedly the headliner. It's still an anthropological mystery how Big Jaw Leno could be selected over the great and powerful Letterman to take over the Tonight Show. He wasn't even completely evolved yet. That's how he got the big nickname, Big Jaw. He wasn't. Think about it. You have nothing to do if you're retired. What are you going to do? Go back to your old-fashioned bagging groceries at the Atlas grocery store? You know, there's just nothing out there. If you decide to retire and you follow through with this, there's going to be tremendous outcry over the whole matter. It's funny because when Big Jaw retired, nobody even said anything. But I suggest you rethink it. Get a hold of Munvez and Tasty over there at CBS. Tell them you'll give them a sweet deal. Negotiate something through 2016. At least until this presidential race is over. You know, you can just coast. You don't need 20-some-odd writers. Trust me, the candidates will give you plenty of material to follow through. You can just phone it in, man. Remember that guy, Anthony Peter? I think it might have been Anthony Weiner. He was the congressman up there in New York. And he had to resign because his internet content was so poor. He got caught sending these sexually explicit pictures out on the text all the time, so he had to resign. So then it wasn't too long after that, it was only about a year and a half, he decided he was ready to go again. So he starts running for mayor of New York City. And he's under the direction of Danny Kindom. Thank God it's not Danny Condom, because, you know, you got Anthony Weiner and his campaign manager, Danny Condom, and I mean, how bad can it get? And, you know, the question is, you know, on your focus, you know, you're trying to impress the voters to get confidence in you to win the election so you can represent. And how far off focus are you really? How far off track are you when you're doing this type of activity? You see what I'm saying, Dave, about these politicians? You see what I'm saying? You know, you got the good old mayor of Canada. You know, he's Rob Ford. He's doing crack and freebasing and slamming down beers. And, you know, it's bad enough that he's doing all that, but then he gets caught twice on video doing it. So he comes clean, and he calls it, how gracious of him, you know. He comes clean, he calls a press conference, and he tells the public, you know, his people, he says, don't worry about it. It probably won't happen again because I was drunk. Well, down here in South Florida, you know, you tell the judge, you use that for an excuse, you tell the judge you was drunk, he's going to give you another charge. Back to these politicians. You remember back a couple years before Al Gore invented the internet, there was a race, presidential race going on. You had Bush 41, you had Loverboy Clinton, and you had that independent guy. You know, what's his name? The guy with the big ears and all the cash. Oh yeah, Ross Perot. So they were running, and what I remember the most about the whole thing is that during these debates, they kept interrupting Perot, and he kept saying, "Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish?" And you know, it's just absurd. That's what I remember the most about the whole election. You got Chris Christie. He's going to run for president. It takes 4 bags of burgers just to keep him moving. And then you got that law that's been on the books forever where you can only weigh so many hundreds and hundreds of pounds and still be eligible to be president. Then there's this other character, Ted Cruz. I really don't know what they're thinking. You know, they got their think tank, they got their finances, they got their whole campaign going. But there's a bottom line. And the bottom line is, nobody named Ted Cruz is ever going to be president of the United States. You know, that's the name for a movie star. It's a stage name is what it is for a movie star, or for the next big hip-hop artist. I don't know what they're thinking. They got to be kidding. It's ridiculous. Well, David, you've come full circle. There you sit on your throne, the undisputed king of late night TV. You're in the same theater that you started out, the Ed Sullivan Theater, when back in the day there was only 3 superstar entities. The Beatles, Elvis, and then the superstar of all superstars, the great David Letterman. I remember all the women, all the young girls. It was completely insane. Complete hysteria. They're throwing their clothes at you. They're screaming, they're crying. You had to have 3 limousines at each job, 2 David Letterman doubles, just to curtail the crazed crowd so you could get in and out of jobs. It was just absolutely crazy. It was a monumental night in entertainment history. That magic night when you finished your performance and Ed Sullivan put his arm around you and he took you in and he said, Letterman is not that arrogant, snippet, vulgar trash mouth that some people have put him out to be, and said he could possibly be a bad influence on the youth of America. Ed Sullivan said, quote, "This is a real fine, decent boy. We never had a better experience with a guest on our show. He is thoroughly all right." But later, when the network brass got a hold of it, they only showed it from the waist down. From the waist down.